Not every rifle that earned its place in history gets remembered. Some were born in the wrong decade. Others got buried under the shadow of bigger names. But here's the reality. There are semi-auto rifles out there that never got the spotlight. Rifles that were reliable, combat-tested, or flat out ahead of their time. These aren't just relics for the museum shelf. Some of them fought in the hands of Marines. Others became trusted hunting rifles. And a few carried design ideas that shaped the guns we still run today. If you're the kind of shooter who digs deep into history, or a collector who respects firearms that punched above their reputation, this list is for you. Let's walk through 8 semi-auto rifles that earned far more credit than they ever got. Number 8. Johnson Rifle, Model 1941. Everybody knows the M1 Garand as the American rifle of World War II, but standing just behind it was the Johnson of 1941. And this rifle brought features that were ahead of its era. Instead of the Garand's on-block clip system, the Johnson used a side-fed rotary magazine. That meant you could drop in loose cartridges or feed from stripper clips at any time, even when the rifle wasn't empty. That was a serious tactical edge for troops in the field. It also featured a quick change barrel. That's a design element we didn't really see again until modern rifles decades later. The operating system was unusual. It used short recoil, with the barrel itself moving rearward alongside the bolt before unlocking. It worked, but it did make the rifle more sensitive to how it was shouldered, and there were more moving parts compared to the Garand. Why didn't it take over? Timing. By the time the Johnson showed up, the Garand was already in full production. No way the U.S. military was going to scrap established assembly lines for a second semi-auto. Still, it wasn't forgotten. Some Marine raiders and paratroopers carried it in the Pacific Theater, and many praised its handling once they put rounds through it. The real legacy comes from the design. Melvin Johnson's rotating bolt concept directly influenced Eugene Stoner's AR-10. That design carried into the AR-15, and later the M16. So in a way, pieces of the Johnson live on in America's most iconic platform. Today it's mostly a collector's rifle, but shooters who have put one on the bench often say the Johnson feels shockingly modern for a weapon built in the early 1940s. It never dethroned the Garand, but it absolutely deserves more respect. Number 7. Daewoo K2. Ask the average American shooter about the Daewoo K2, and most will give you a blank stare. And that's a shame, because this rifle is the definition of underrated. It takes the familiar ergonomics of the AR-15 and blends them with the piston-driven toughness of an AK. Under the hood, it runs a long-stroke gas piston, but the controls feel instantly familiar to anyone who's run an AR platform. It's chambered in 5.56 NATO, keeping it compatible with the modern standard. The Republic of Korea adopted it as their service rifle, and it's been in military use for decades without issue. One standout feature is the folding stock. That's not something you typically get on an AR without aftermarket parts. On the K2, it was built in from the factory, making the rifle more compact for vehicles or tight spaces. And reliability. This thing is built tough, a workhorse rifle meant to endure the worst conditions. So why doesn't it have the recognition it deserves? Once again, timing. By the time the K2 hit the scene, the AR, the M16, and the AK had already locked down nearly every major military contract, and Daewoo never pushed it heavily into the civilian market abroad. But if you ever get the chance to run one, you'll see firsthand why the K2 earned its reputation among those who know it. It's the best of both worlds, and it deserves a spot in the conversation. Number 6. Remington Model 8. If we're talking about rifles that laid the foundation for every semi-auto that followed, the Remington Model 8 has to be on that list. John Browning designed it in 1906. Think about that. Over a century ago, hunters could walk into a shop and pick up a reliable auto-loading rifle off the shelf. It ran on a long recoil system. The barrel and bolt moved rearward together. Then the bolt cycled forward to chamber the next round. Watch one in action, and you'll see the entire barrel slide back with each shot. It's a wild thing to witness. The Model 8 came chambered in proprietary rounds. 25 Remington, 30 Remington, and 35 Remington. Those cartridges limited its long-term staying power, But back in the day, it gave hunters serious firepower. And it wasn't just hunters carrying it. Law enforcement bought in, too. The most famous case was Frank Hamer, the Texas Ranger who led the posse that put down Bonnie and Clyde. He carried a modified Model 8 in .35 Remington. That fact alone should have secured the rifle's place in the history books. It never made it into mass military service, but in its era, it was absolutely a trailblazer. Modern rifles might overshadow it, but if you trace the bloodline of semi-autos, the Model 8 sits right at the root. Number 5. Heckler Koch G3. The Heckler Koch G3 is one of those rifles that never got the spotlight it deserved in the United States, but across the world, it became a workhorse for decades. It's chambered in 7.62 NATO. That means barrier penetration, serious power at distance, and a level of durability that lighter carbines just can't match. At the heart of the G3 is a roller-delayed blowback system. That operating system gives the rifle a sharp recoil impulse, more of a snap than a push. But the trade-off is mechanical simplicity and battlefield reliability. Yes, it feels heavier than today's lightweight carbines. But when the mission calls for reach and authority, the G3 absolutely delivers. That's why so many militaries around the globe kept it in active service long after sleeker designs had come along. Another detail worth noting, the G3 adapted with the times. Rails, collapsible stocks, upgraded handguards, all of it kept the rifle relevant well into the modern era. It might not have earned the same name recognition in America as the M14 or the FAL, but globally, the G3 stands as one of the most underappreciated battle rifles ever made. Number 4. FN-49. The FN-49 is a rifle that history almost forgot. Fabrique Nationale built it right after World War II, intended as Europe's answer to the semi-auto battle rifle. On paper, it checked all the right boxes. Strong machining, dependable operation, and chamberings that ranged from 7x57 Mauser to 30.06 Springfield to 7.92 Mauser. So why didn't it become a household name like the FAL or the Garand? Timing. By the time Fabrique Nationale put the 49 on the market, the major powers had already standardized their service rifles. Instead of widespread adoption, the 49 ended up scattered across nations like Egypt, Venezuela, Luxembourg, and Belgium, each chambering it in different calibers. Mechanically, though, the 49 was solid. It used a tilting bolt system. It ran clean, and for its era, it was plenty accurate. Collectors who shoot them often describe the 49 as the missing link between the rifles of World War II and the fully modern FAL. It had all the right bones, but it arrived a few years too late to change history. Number 3. Winchester Model 100. In the early 1960s, Winchester rolled out the Model 100 just as the market for semi-auto hunting rifles was heating up. On paper, it looked like a winner. Chamberings in .308 Winchester, .243 Winchester, and the less common .284 Winchester. Shooters loved how it carried. It wasn't nose-heavy. The balance was clean. And for hunters used to bolt actions or lever guns, the Model 100 felt natural in the hands. So why didn't it become the classic that Remington's 742 did? 2 reasons. First, Remington marketed their rifle harder, and they offered it in .30.06 Springfield, a chambering American hunters already trusted. Winchester skipped that caliber, and it cost them. Second, a firing pin recall hit later on. The fix wasn't complicated, but the word recall is poison for a rifle's reputation. Even so, the Model 100 still built a loyal fan base. Owners brag about sub-minute of angle accuracy and smooth, crisp triggers. It may not have topped the sales charts, but for those who know it, the Model 100 is still a gem among classic hunting semi-autos. Number 2. MAS 4956. France doesn't usually get recognized as a powerhouse in rifle development, but the MAS 4956 proves they had more going on than most folks realize. This rifle came out right before France shifted over to select fire assault rifles. It was designed as a straight shooting, no-frills battle rifle meant to hold up under harsh field conditions. Mechanically, it ran a direct impingement gas system. That's gas routed straight into the bolt carrier, which cuts down on moving parts compared to piston-driven guns. It made the rifle lighter and simpler to maintain. It was chambered in 7.5 by 54 French, That cartridge never spread worldwide the way 7.62 NATO or 7.62 by 39 Soviet did. And that's one reason this rifle stayed in the background instead of becoming an international staple. But when you feed it good ammunition, the MAS-49 56 is smooth, balanced, and surprisingly accurate. Recoil is very manageable, and soldiers who carried it respected how straightforward it was. The real reason it didn't get famous comes down to timing. By the 1960s, militaries everywhere were chasing lighter rifles with higher capacity magazines. And even France soon moved on to the bullpup FAMAS. That leaves the 49-56 as one of those rifles that worked exactly as intended, but never got the long-term recognition it earned. Number 1. Ruger Mini 14. Since the 1970s, the Ruger Mini 14 has been running steady in the background. It never got the spotlight like the AR-15, but it carved out its own role, and it still holds respect today among ranchers, law enforcement, and shooters who just want a rugged, no-drama semi-auto. It's chambered in 223 Remington, and the design is essentially a scaled-down M14. You've got a Garand-style rotating bolt, a short-stroke gas piston, and the option of a traditional wood stock that makes it look right at home in the field. That classic look is part of why the Mini 14 still sells. Some buyers don't want a rifle that screams tactical. They want something that blends in, but still delivers fast follow-up shots and reliability. Now, early Minis had a reputation for mediocre accuracy. Thin barrels would heat up and groups would start walking. But Ruger fixed that years ago with heavier barrels and tighter machining. Modern Minis can keep tight groups good enough for varmints, defense, or range work. Another angle that makes the Mini 14 underrated? Its legal footprint. In states where AR-15s get targeted by restrictive gun laws, the Mini 14 often slips through because of its more traditional profile. That's kept it alive in markets where other rifles got banned outright. So while it may never replace the AR, the Mini 14 has earned its place as one of the most adaptable, dependable semi-autos of the last 50 years. And that wraps it up 8 semi-auto rifles that never got the respect they deserved. Not every design becomes a household name. Sometimes the best tools stay in the shadows, known only by the folks who actually put them to work. So let me throw it back to you. Which one of these rifles do you think deserves the most respect? Or do you have another hidden gem that should have made this list? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you're running. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this with your range buddies. And as always, stay sharp, stay trained, and I'll see you on the next one.